Welcome to Historic New England's new web streaming series, Leading Voices, conversations on preservation, resilience, and cultural philanthropy. I'm Vince Cipolla, President and CEO of Historic New England. Our Leading Voices series hosts cultural and philanthropic leaders from the United States and abroad, discussing the critical catalytic role of private philanthropy in building, protecting, and ensuring our cultural fabric. Cultural philanthropy has played an essential role in the growth of Historic New England, the oldest and largest regional heritage organization in the United States, and a national leader in historic preservation and storytelling. Among our object and archival collections are hundreds of materials related to the beauty and fragrance industries, all of which makes me particularly delighted to welcome our two distinguished leaders today, Marc Rosen and Pamela Fiori. Both Marc, an internationally acclaimed, multiple award-winning designer of fragrance, cosmetic, and fashion packaging, as well as an influential philanthropist and educator, and Pamela, legendary editor of Town & Country, have been groundbreakers in the beauty, culture, and publishing worlds and are intimately familiar with the power of individual philanthropy. Marc, who heads his own design consulting firm, has worked with some of the most famous beauty manufacturers and fashion names in the world, including Karl Lagerfeld, Fendi, Elizabeth Arden, Revlon, Estee Lauder, Nina Ricci, Perry Ellis, and Oscar de la Renta. His designs are represented in the permanent collections of New York's Museum of Modern Art and the Musée de la Mode Paris. Marc has been the creative inspiration for, or curator of, pioneering museum exhibitions including cosmetic packaging, a 20th century art form, at the Fashion Institute of Technology, the co-chair of the Fragrance Foundation's Sense of Time exhibit, and the Glass Houses exhibit at Pratt Institute's new Graduate Center in Manhattan, featuring his perfume bottle designs. Last but certainly not least, Marc has distinguished himself both as an educator and philanthropist, particularly at Pratt Institute, where he has raised nearly $4 million through his annual Art of Packaging Gala. An editor, writer, and authority on luxury, travel, and lifestyle, Pamela Fiore has been a significant influence on the way we view philanthropy, especially when shining a personal light on individuals whose passions informed their giving. As editor-in-chief of Town & Country for 17 years, she not only expanded the magazine's coverage of philanthropy, Pamela also broadened its coverage of fashion and style, beauty and health, wealth management, home design, and the arts. Prior to joining Town & Country, she was widely credited with the success of Travel and Leisure when she was editor, and followed that success as executive vice president and editorial director of all of American Express's publications, including Departures and Food and Wine. Pamela has written 7 books published by Rizzoli and Assouline, most recently an acclaimed history of the storied magazine Holiday. She was awarded by the French president that nation's prestigious Order of Merit. She received the Matrix Award for Journalism, the Audrey Hepburn Humanitarian Award from UNICEF, and many other distinguished honors. A personal force of nature in the philanthropy world, Pamela is the co-founder of the annual UNICEF Snowflake Ball and served on the board of the U.S. Fund for UNICEF for many years. And now I'm delighted to turn the conversation over to Marc and Pamela.
Pamela, great to see you. And Historic New England, thank you for hosting this. Since Pamela and I both come from the world of fashion and publishing, I think fashion and cosmetics have really been leaders early on in terms of philanthropy before a lot of companies have done that. And it was kind of heartwarming to me coming from that industry to see how supportive our industries have been for decades. And now, of course, food companies and drug company, every company is really behind various charities, but I think that they were really pioneers. Philanthropy has become really part of our DNA today. It's not just for trust fund babies. Young people who do lemonade stands, kids who are selling lemonade and donate the money to the local animal shelter, grow up to continue philanthropy as their pocketbooks are able to, or causes that they find interesting. The cosmetic and fashion industry has always been very philanthropic. From the very beginning of my career, I got involved with events that I helped to design for charities like the American Cancer Society, the City of Hope, for the fashion industry, exhibits in the cosmetic industry, and of course the big companies like Estee Lauder or L'Oreal or Elizabeth Arden were all philanthropic, and that was really the lessons I learned at the beginning of my career were how essential it is to give part of your earnings to the charity that you found that is interesting to you, that you want to support. One of the projects that I've done recently, which is rather unique, is for a research foundation called Hope for Depression, which was founded by a dear friend of mine, Audrey Gruss, who called one day and said, since she worked with me at Elizabeth Arden back in the day, she said, Mark, I think I'd like to do a perfume, a fragrance collection called Hope, because based on the charity I started called Hope for Depression. Her mother's name was Hope and was clinically depressed. And would you design the packaging for me? Well, it was so unique, and she got a fragrance house, Firmenich, to create the fragrance, and everyone got involved with her to create something very special. And all of the proceeds go to research, not to brick and mortar, but to research. And she has the top doctors in the world who are doing research on depression. And I introduced her to the buyer at Bergdorf Goodman, who's an old friend, and it's currently for sale at Bergdorf. And one of the reasons is that they, as a major fashion store, understood how important philanthropy was.
I can give you a couple of examples of this new breed of philanthropy and how it resonates with people. I was on the board of the U.S. Fund for UNICEF for a long time, and one of the people who was on the board is the actress Téa Leoni. Téa's history with UNICEF goes way back to her grandmother. Her grandmother, after World War II, was one of the people who started what is called the U.S. Board for UNICEF. Not only did her grandmother do that, but her father became involved, and he was the head of the board of the U.S. Fund. And when I came on the board, Téa was not only an ambassador for UNICEF, as she well should have been, but she was also very involved in the cause for the U.S. board, U.S. Fund. The other person that comes to mind is Michael J. Fox. For a long time, he didn't tell people about his being diagnosed with Parkinson's. And when he finally did, he started the Michael J. Fox Foundation to raise money for Parkinson's. And he was on the cover of the magazine with his wife in early 2000 and has done a miraculous job of really shining the light on this terrible disease. And that people wouldn't have known about or have seen any kind of clues for any kind of cure. The third one is Paul Newman. And when he was alive, one of the first things he did was he started creating these food products, salsas and popcorn and tomato sauces under the brand Newman's Own. But it wasn't just creating products, and they were pretty good, by the way. He raised money to start these children's camps for kids with cancer and with other diseases. And well after his death, this goes on in a very big way. They have camps all over the country. And he was the first person that we ever put on the cover who exemplified this new way of looking at philanthropy.
I can give you another example, which is, I think, very interesting, is for many years I've been involved with the Lighthouse, now called the Lighthouse Guild, for the blind, and it's the oldest organization in the country for people who are blind or have low vision. And for years and years, I was involved in doing something called the Posh Sale, which Pamela is familiar with, whereby uh, well-to-do or well-dressed people would donate couture or designer clothes, both for men and women, that they either no longer were wearing, and they would donate these clothes to the Lighthouse. And we would have a big sale every year, and people came from all over the country and waited online in the cold for the doors to open. And all the money, of course, that was raised, which was a great deal, went to help people who were blind or had low vision. And so that was a very original way of raising money back in the day.
And now it's being done. I mean, you can't even
so-
look at a major luxury firm, brand, jewelry, clothing, accessories. All of them have a connection to philanthropy. All of them do some good, and that raises their profile in a very important way.
No, it's great PR for them as well as being altruistic. So, as I said earlier, in the cosmetic industry, companies like Estee Lauder and Louis Vuitton are very philanthropic, as Lauder is with breast cancer, of course, and each company sort of has chosen their own form of philanthropy. I've been involved for over 30 years as a trustee at Pratt Institute and a professor with doing a fundraiser every year called The Art of Packaging, as I am a packaging designer and been teaching for over 30 years, a course called Package Design Workshop. And I wanted to raise the awareness in the industry of how important packaging design is as a creative component of marketing. And each year we honored a different cosmetic company that I felt had exceeded in the art of packaging at the University Club. And I'm very proud of it. And we've raised almost $4 million, and which created scholarships for students, graduate students, students who wanted to be graduate students at Pratt, as well as a forum, a design forum that we do each year, and I know Pamela has been to that. So that's been very gratifying for me, as well as for the cosmetic industry. And we've gotten suppliers who make bottles and caps and boxes to recognize the importance of packaging and to realize that philanthropy to a school like Pratt was so important, because Pratt has a huge number of scholarships they offer to students, not just in my area, but in all the areas that they educate in.
Mark and I talked about this, and something we know a bit about called cause-related marketing. When I was at American Express Publishing as the editor of Travel and Leisure magazine, this was something that American Express kind of invented. When I got to Town and Country, I started thinking, well, maybe there's a way that we can adapt this to what we do with the magazine. And we had a young, bright, ambitious publisher at the time by the name of Jim Taylor. And when I proposed this to Jim, he didn't know what I was talking about and thought this was a really silly idea, until he put his good brains to it and realized that there was really something there. And the something was doing events with advertisers where we would invite subscribers to these events, and for every purchase, a good part of it would go to charity. And it became a huge success that a lot of other magazines started to adopt.
So, I think we touched earlier upon young people who are now understanding that the philanthropic component is just part of their DNA, because they've seen their parents do it, their friends do it, and it could start out with $1 and could go, depending on their position in life or their economics, can go to many thousands or millions of dollars. But the point is that when we were growing up back in the Stone Age, philanthropy was something that was for wealthy people. Today, I think young people realize that they need to set aside a certain amount of their income for philanthropy, things that interest them. And talking about historic New England, which is so much about museums and historic homes and collections of historic things, many people opt to support the restoration or support of beautiful properties where they live or where they would like to live, or places that they admire. And today, people are learning about the architects who built the homes, the families who lived there, things that went on there. And I did an exhibit about 2 years ago at the Nassau County Museum of Art, a retrospective, which was a former Frick mansion, and which was made into a museum. And it was wonderful seeing the lines of people who appreciated the house but wanted to preserve the house, understood that their contributions went not only towards the exhibits, but towards keeping up the house and the property. And that's true of historic houses all over the country.
I think of the house tours and the garden tours that happen
Yeah,
in
right.
many communities across the country, where you can, pay your a small amount and look into other people's lives or other people's past. An interesting example of this is the Louis Armstrong house, which is in Corona in Queens, a house where Louis Armstrong, probably the most important person in the jazz world ever, he and his wife lived there, and they've restored the house, and people can go and visit it, which is a really incredible thing.
No, it's absolutely true. Of course, that it goes anywhere from restoring Versailles, which the Vanderkamps back in the day, Americans, encouraged American people to help to restore Versailles, to a small house. I live in Rockland County, and there's a small house in Nyack where Edward Hopper lived, and there's a whole group of people that have restored that and keep it up. So you have the balance of a small Victorian house that does exhibitions of his work, to doing major homes in Newport or Versailles or anywhere in the world. So you can choose, depending on your interest and your economics, what you want to do, and you can participate as well as donate. You can become, your philanthropy could be your time that you're donating to the cause you're interested in.
Mark, think of what the whole subject of climate change has done in terms of philanthropy, and how so many young people, kids in grade school and in high school, have joined together to become very aware of what's happening on planet Earth, and doing their part, not only with climate, but also land conservation, with wildlife. Think of all the people who love animals so much and what they have done to preserve, conserve, and also bring back to life certain species. I find that very exciting, and it is something that comes close to the hearts of children.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all these TV commercials from the animal shelters, which just break your heart, asking for donations, are incredible. We all watch these and pick up the phone and make donations, or NET, the TV stations that run wonderful concerts and things that you contribute to.
And think about what Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have done with their vaccination programs.
Yeah, exactly.
With what they've done in terms of education.
Right.
When you admire somebody and you see that they're doing good, you want to somehow follow as powerfully or meekly as you can in their footsteps. And it's quite an amazing thing to see. One of the early organizations that I remember, which was US based, but it was involved with a endeavor in Venice, is an organization called Save Venice. And this enlisted
Right.
a lot of Americans who love the city to become involved in raising money to restore churches and other institutions, artwork, and really brought a lot of attention not only to Venice, the city, but also the plight of Venice with its water issues. So it was one of the first articles that I wrote for the magazine when I became editor, and it brought a lot of attention to it, which was good. I mean, I think Americans, and this has always been true, America is the biggest fundraiser and biggest giver on the face of the earth. We always have been, we always will be. We are the leaders, and because this is just part of what we do and who we are as Americans.
As you know, a big part of my career has been designing perfume bottles for corporations like Estee Lauder and Elizabeth Arden, where I was a senior VP for many years, or working with fashion houses like Lagerfeld, Chloe, Fendi, or niche brands, which I've enjoyed working with. What's happened, which is exciting for me, is that these bottles, which years ago some people would discard, throw away, but some people would save. These bottles have memory. They represent memories. If a woman sees a Shalimar bottle and, oh, my grandmother always used Shalimar. I used to see that on her dressing table all the time. And she saved those bottles. On a flight to Paris, a flight attendant who asked me what I did, and I told her, she said that her grandmother had collected perfume bottles, passed them on to her mother, who extended the collection. Her mother passed away and has left the bottles to her, and she cherishes them and is leaving them to her daughter. And it was the first time I ever realized that people put value on these bottles like stocks and bonds and real estate. It's something that, or jewelry, that you would leave to your heirs as something that was something special, something of value, both emotional value and now financial value, because at auctions, these perfume bottles are sold around the world at auctions today, which is amazing. I did a book called Glamour Icons a few years ago, and I started thinking about these beautiful bottles, which have inspired me in my designs and inspired my students. And I realized that each decade, the definition of glamour has changed based on war, famine, Hollywood, and the bottles, which are, fragrance is a fashion accessory. A woman gets dressed, and the last thing she does is put on the fragrance. The design of the bottles, and as the design of fashion, came from the sensibility of the time and the definition of what was glamorous. So the book was 100 years of glamour, decade by decade, and I chose bottles that I thought exemplified that definition of glamour. And that was part of the exhibition I did. So it's very heartwarming to me to note that perfume bottles today, as well as scent, which has a memory, you smell a scent and it immediately takes you back to the first fragrance a woman wore on a date, Sweet 16, is a lovely thing. And when I did the exhibit at the Nassau Museum of Art, I was pleased to find out that even though they've done wonderful exhibits on art and sculpture, and mine was sort of a unique topic for an exhibit, that we had the highest attendance they've ever had. Both men and women were interested in seeing these wonderful bottles. So it means a lot to me to do something, to design something that means something to other people. So I'm very lucky. I would like to congratulate Pamela on what she did at Town and Country and how she really expanded the reader's understanding of philanthropy by the stories she did, the people she interviewed, and how they really changed the image of the magazine from something that was so elitist to something that women could relate to. And by relating to it, they learned more about philanthropy. And I'm sure that encouraged them to be philanthropic. So Pamela, bravo to you.
Thank you, Marc.
Marc and Pamela, thank you so much for sharing your insights on the power of individual philanthropy and the range of opportunities personal passion has for philanthropic expression. To find out more about our guest today, as well as our other guests from Leading Voices and Historic New England's extensive decorative arts collection, please visit historicnewengland.org/leadingvoices. On behalf of Historic New England, I'm Vince Cipolla. Thanks for joining us.